Hi, this is Joni Sweetland. Welcome to the Strong Women, Stronger World podcast, where each episode we interview different leaders to help accelerate your leadership learning, challenge you to take risks to advance your own career, and teach you how to lead from inside out. My comments and insights are based on my own experience, which span a 27-year career in global management consulting, including 18 as a partner. This podcast is meant to inspire and empower you to action. It is time to step into your power. The world needs more women leaders. Together, we are strong. Strong women, stronger world. Our topic today is saying no with our special guest, Christina Ho. Christina is a senior executive with 27 years of broad experience in public policy, finance, data analytics, and technology innovation. Christina has a track record of successfully leading change, driving innovation, and achieving results in a highly political and multicultural environment. She served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Financial Transparency at the U.S. Department of Treasury and was responsible for leading the implementation of the Data Act of 2014. Her efforts to transform government-wide spending information from disconnected documents into open data greatly improved transparency and accountability. As an innovator, she is not a stranger to the word no. Over the past 2 decades, she has learned to embrace no and wanted to encourage women to think differently about it. Welcome, Christina, to our show.
Thank you, Joni. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is such a pleasure. And Christina, let's just get started so our listeners can learn a little more about your background and your story on really what led you to this topic of saying no today.
Well, it's actually, I was inspired by my daughter. She is 8. 2 years ago, she started watching this show called the Kids Baking Championship and started baking because she wanted to someday be on the show. And the show is like typical those competition. Every episode there's a challenge, and then at the end of each episode, a kid will get sent home until they get all the way to the final when you identify the championship. Recently, my daughter told me that she didn't want to get on the show anymore. And I said, why is that? And she said, well, I don't want to get sent home. That would be embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, wow, at the age of 8, she already has the fear of no. And holding herself back from wanting something she really wanted to do at one point. And I just thought that is actually very typical, especially for women. So I just reflected on it more and thought about my own journey. I realized that a lot of time we self-eliminate ourselves before other people do because we are so afraid of that rejection, and we reject ourselves first and give us this illusion that we're somehow in control. So that's why I really wanted to talk about this, to share what I have learned and to encourage others.
Wow, that's really powerful. And, you're bringing up so many important points. I mean, first of all, with your daughter and, being 8 and wanting to be a part of this special show, but then learning through that rejection and what you just talked about our need to self-reject at times in order to protect. Because we're protecting ourselves from whatever that might be. So that is so powerful. And I really want to know, like, why is it so hard to hear the word no.
Yeah, I have been thinking about that. I think it's rooted in this obsession that we have to control. Let's face it, we're control freaks. I think, like, especially women, I can say this because I'm one. Um, but I think that we somehow think because when we say hear no, we feel so powerless because we feel that we're rejected, we let it define who we are. So I think that that mindset um, kind of stick to us probably along the way of our upbringing. Recently, I've been thinking a little bit more about that. Is that I think if we grow up feeling powerless, like if our parents say no to us often or don't let us make decision as often, we actually have a deeper fear of no. And this actually translate into, how I think about what I need to do as a parent.
Mm.
The more I allow my daughter to make decision appropriate to her age and let her even bear the consequences, even if it's, make her sad or something like that, it actually makes her feel more empowered. And
Mm.
I think as adult, it's the same thing. The more we can make decisions for ourselves and say yes to ourselves, um, even if the consequences are not always exactly what we like, we feel more empowered. And over time, we can overcome or have less of this fear. I mean, I still struggle at times, so it's not like I have arrived. It's a lifetime journey.
That makes the rest of us feel good, Christina. That's so human. Excellent. Well, you had a lot in there. And, as parents, especially as a parent of a young girl, and I know I have my two girls as well, um, one of the most important things that you're talking about here in allowing your children to make their own age appropriate decisions. This is basically encouraging risk taking, appropriate risk taking. And research has shown that this is something that we're not necessarily doing as much for our girls as we are for our boys. And so I think that there's something to this and how that can stick with you for years later. So I really love that. And the other thing you mentioned was being able to say yes to ourselves. Wow. Being able to say yes to ourselves, to me, that feels like giving yourself full permission. So, just like that permission slip, sometimes as parents, we have to sign for our kids. We're like signing our own permission slip to say, it's okay. It is okay. I'm giving myself full permission. That's empowering.
Yeah, I think that the perspectives, we always think of no, if we hear no, it's a definitive and there's no more after that. But in reality, no is a necessary step to yes. Um, and there will be no yes if there's no no's. Recent in the technology field, people have a common saying these days about fail fast. If hurry up and let's get to the failure so you could pivot and then get to the success ultimately. So viewing no as a step to a necessary step to the yes and to the success is a important perspective and mindset. It helps us to think about the no differently. And also another thing I think is we tend to assign personal value to the no.
Hmm.
Um, we may think, oh, they don't like me, or I can think about, the biggest professional accomplishment I've had is to be able to lead the government-wide implementation of the Data Act. And believe me, there was many no's.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, it was a law that mandated over 100 federal agencies
Wow.
to publish their financial data with no budget. And you can only imagine how many people said no. There were many. But I think if you take the no as a starting point where you can pivot and understand the no, and then that will get you to the ultimate yes. And it may look something different at the end, but if we let that initial no to stop us or to even try, we would not even get to the yes at all.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the mindset that I have tried to think about when I hear people say no, and also not to take that personally, so that it can so that I can think objectively about how to adjust and get to the ultimate goal.
I love this so much. The mindset shift as leaders to really recognizing that a no is just one important step to getting to the yes. And personally, I even think in my career where there have been times when I learned the power of hearing the no and accepting that, I actually was looking for the no's at time so that I would not waste more time and energy in a place that was going to result in a no anyway. I think it's better to get to that no, and then you can move on to get one step closer to the yes. So I think there's a lot there. And I love that concept of failing fast because it's, whatever reason as human beings, we still, even though we've heard these words, this is a great pragmatic way to fail fast and do it in such a healthy way. So I think that's such a great concept. And then the idea of assigning personal value, as you mentioned, to the no. If we can just recognize that is our own assumptions, right? That we as leaders are assigning that, and it's just business. Sometimes people are busy or they're just not interested, and that's okay. That's not personal. But I want to flip for a moment, Christina. What we've been talking about hearing the no. What about, is there any nuances in saying no? Is there any advice or thoughts or experience you've had around being able to say no strategically?
Yeah. So part of being able to say yes to yourself is also be able to say no when you need to or it's not most beneficial. And I think that that's something actually I used to really struggle with until I got to a point where I started practicing something small. Because I always was afraid that if I say no, people won't ask me again, or they think I'm not a team player or not cooperative. So I still remember years ago when I was at Treasury on a detail assignment, and I was standing up a program from scratch, also because of a law, Small Business Jobs Act, 2010. And the person actually eventually got on board to run the office, asked me actually to come in to work the next day, that when I was supposed to be off. And so I thought, because I felt this tension to say yes, but I thought, what better time for me to say no than now? Because I don't really need, this is not my permanent job. And
Yeah.
so I actually said no, and nothing bad happened.
Yeah.
So I think that
Amazing.
experience gave me that practice to realize all that, anxiety that I brought to myself, or felt the need that I had to say yes all this time, was really all like from me. So that was really helpful. So at that moment, I think it was strategic because I consciously decided, well, let me practice that, and and I did, and nothing bad happened.
That is amazing. And I think practice makes perfect, right? Not that we're striving to be perfect, but the ability for it to be more natural, to say no, and creating that time and space, whether it's time, well deserved time off, or whether that might be just creating time on your calendar as a leader to think strategically, or perhaps it's an opportunity that is, you have enough on your plate, you really wouldn't be doing yourself or the other person a good service by taking something else on, and maybe there's someone else that would benefit from having that opportunity. So I think that there's
Yeah,
lots of ways to think about that. But yes, so practice so it becomes more natural.
yeah. Another thing that helps, I think, is having someone who knows you well. It could be a friend or a coach, um, who can really help you process these things and also challenge you. I find that helpful, because sometimes you do need that accountability, and also someone who can encourage you.
I think that is great advice. And just even recognizing, taking the time to recognize if there is a pattern of saying yes, maybe too often, or the flip side. I'm also thinking about, if someone is a more introverted leader and may say no more often, that maybe there is an opportunity to say yes. So it may really depend, right, on the leader and their situation, but I love the idea of an accountability partner, to really help us as we continue to grow and practice either being able to say no or maybe yes, depending on the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. All right, so if are you naturally just not afraid of getting a no answer at this point because you've practiced this, or how does that work for you?
No, definitely not. I actually still remember my first job. After I graduated from college, my first job was an auditor, and as you know, auditors always have to go to places where people are not welcoming you, to ask a bunch of questions, ask for a bunch of documentation,
Right.
and talking about not feeling welcome or liked. That was, I was always like, I used to be terrified and would procrastinate until, I could no longer wait to go ask for the information, and ask questions. So I definitely was not naturally, just have, this, don't mind getting no. I think over time, I learned more about myself, my strengths and weaknesses. um, I learned more about who I am, and got more comfortable, and it's a journey to really, it takes reflection, commitment to push yourself outside of your comfort zone sometimes, and also be willing to seek out advice like I talked about earlier.
Mhm.
I think that, the key is, do you have a vision for yourself, uh, to be the best you can be and reach your fullest potential?
Mhm.
If you have that vision for yourself, then say yes to yourself. Say yes to accepting uh, no's or adjusting to it. Say yes to saying no if you need to. Say yes to owning both your success and failure. So I think that if you have that vision, and I know many women that I work with that I know have great potential to be as much as they want to be. And I think that will us help you to overcome this challenge and the fear of no.
I think that's great advice for our listeners and for myself. Say yes to yourself. I think that really speaks volumes, and being able to say yes so you can say no when you need to. Um, Great. So, what are some practical steps that you can provide our listeners to help them as they're practicing to say no and kind of overcoming this fear that you talked about earlier of either not being perceived as a team player or not appearing to be collaborative, even though it is, the right time to say no and it's a strategic opportunity?
Yeah, I think like some of the practical steps are like what I have mentioned earlier. Practice, start with something small. That's that you don't have as much at
Right.
stake. And I think you'll see that saying that no that you think was so bad uh, actually wouldn't lead to something that bad. And I think over time, the more you can practice and the more you build confidence, and then you can start saying that more comfortably and saying that to, bigger um, opportunities or bigger question or bigger ask. And then, of course, getting somebody in your life to really challenge you and to, it has to be someone you trust, someone who knows you, who has the vision of what you could become. I still remember in my Deloitte day, which actually that's where I felt like I developed a lot of my leadership skills. Um, it always takes someone who knows you to see your potential. We don't normally see that in us first. It's oftentimes someone who's more senior or someone who's more
Mhm.
experienced can see the potential of a talent. And they tell you or they expect that of you. And then we rise to the occasion. I think it's very important to have people like that in our lives. Um, and we need to be that kind of person to other people too. That's how I feel about, all the benefits I have gotten from other people doing that to me. For me, I want to encourage others.
I love that so much. So, really look for those mentors or sponsors in your life that are going to help you rise and really see your potential and help you to recognize, where you may need to start putting some boundaries in your life as a leader to continue your growth. And as leaders and or managers, we also want to recognize that potential and the others that we are working with and help them to rise as well. So it's really basically a paying it forward and helping others to really embrace the power of the no.
Yeah, and just like now at Elder Research, where I lead the government civilian practice, we just started a women development program with you, Joni, and that's the exciting part. And it's really about helping women to develop and helping them to become the leader they want to be and reach their fullest potential. So that kind of program and tools also help us to help other people.
Absolutely. That is, it's So empowering for our women and minorities and everyone to be able to have that opportunity to really understand their potential and have all the tools and be able to practice being able to say no in strategic settings. So I think that's wonderful. Okay, so Christina, before we let you go today, we ask all of our guests a keystone question, and that is, what makes you feel strong?
Yeah, I think my authenticity makes me feel really strong. I don't feel that it helps me to be who I am. I don't feel like I have to be someone I am not. I'm perfectly comfortable with where I am. And not to say I don't have anything to improve, but because I feel, when I know who I am, I feel grounded and it gives me strength to face challenges. It gives me strength to celebrate other people, to help others, and also to say yes to myself when there are good opportunities for me to embrace.
Excellent. Authenticity is such a strength. Well, we can't thank you enough, Christina. And my question to you is, where can our listeners find you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, and I also my current job is I work for Elder Research, and which is a 25-year data science consulting firm, and I lead the government civilian practice there. And we have our website, and you're welcome to reach out to me if you have questions, and I would love to be helpful.
Excellent. Christina, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Joni. This is really fun. I really enjoy it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And we want to thank our listeners. We hope that you were inspired today to embrace the no and step into your leadership. Thank you for listening. If you are interested in supporting this content, please hit the subscribe button. This will help to bring much needed funding to bring quality programming to our listeners like you. Your support is greatly appreciated. We encourage you to leave comments. If you have suggestions for leadership topics, please provide those in the comments and we will strive to address those in upcoming episodes. It is time to step into your power. The world needs your leadership. Together we are strong. Strong women, stronger world.